All right, welcome back to the RunThrough Trails Podcast. Really good to have you guys back with us again. We've had a really nice varied range of guests on the podcast recently. Nice change from me and Lewis just talking about my training constantly. But we've got a slightly different type of guest today. So today we're joined by Danny from TrailFam. Welcome, Danny.
Hi, thanks, James. Good to see you.
Yeah, great to have you on. Danny's part of an organization called TrailFam, which we're going to talk about quite a lot in this episode. Get to know Danny, get to know a bit more about the organization and what these guys are all about. But Danny and I were put in touch through a mutual friend and colleague, Justin, just recently, and we've been talking about how we can collaborate on getting some of the kids from Danny's organization involved with some of the RunThrough Trail events. And I just thought it was super interesting what you guys are working on, and thought our audience might be interested in kind of hearing about your journey, how you came to bring the organization about, the different kids that you work with, and kind of the why behind what you guys do. So maybe we'll just start out with the kind of standard question that we start out with for all of our guests, which is, how did you find the sport of trail running? What got you into trail running?
It's a really good question. So essentially, I was in my early 20s and determined to party as much as I possibly could. And I was just out all the time. And then one day, I've got an older brother, he's 4 years older than me, and we've been competitive with each other our entire lives. And one day he sent me I can't remember, it might have been like a Facebook post or something, and it was for the London Triathlon. And we sort of, we hatched a plan that we were going to both sign up for it and race each other. And we ended up doing that. And I kind of went into that knowing that my swimming was pretty good, my cycling was terrible, and I just had no idea about running whatsoever because I'd never done it before. And so we, come race day, what I thought would happen happened, where the swim went really well, the cycle I just couldn't abide, and then the run was a complete surprise, and I actually really enjoyed the run, and ended up, just for the record, beating my brother, which I think is important to say here, and so that kind of sowed a little seed, and then I don't really know how exactly this happened, but I found myself sort of searching through YouTube, and it feels like when I came into the sport of trail running was a bit of a heyday for kind of YouTube trail running filmmakers. There was the likes of the Ginger Runner and Billy Yang, and they were putting out films and content all the time. And it was, quite romantic in that sense. And so I actually fell in love with the sport before I even laced up a pair of trail shoes, which is odd, I know. And then eventually, just thought, well, this seems like such a great thing. I should probably give this a go. And it's been a complete love affair ever since. And it's kind of, I mean, you'll know this better than most. It shapes our family holidays now in terms of mountain ranges and things like that. It's obviously what's shaped my career now as well. Long may that continue.
Amazing. Yeah, I mean, I can picture like the exact sort of content that you're talking about, like Billy Yang, Ginger Runner, all those people is the type of stuff that I was consuming as well. And we talk quite a lot at RunThrough Trails about, it's one of the things that makes trail running a little bit different in the running space. There's obviously loads of factors that go into it, but like just purely the kind of aspirational side of it, how cool these places look aesthetically. Like those beautiful drone shots of people running through the mountains, or that kind of experience that you can have of watching people kind of suffer in a really long ultra distance race and then come through the other side and battle through the adversity. And it really makes you want to give it a go. And I think that's why we see so many people, rightly or wrongly, diving into like very difficult, challenging terrain and long races, maybe when they're not ready to do so, but just because they're inspired to kind of challenge themselves and push themselves. So it's interesting that you were inspired by that before you even gave it a go. So what did that first go look like? Where are you based? What are your local trails like? How did you kind of step into it as a participant?
So I'm an Essex boy, and I was immediately looking for for trail running races. We've got the Essex Trail Events, is a real sort of grassroots organisation that's near me, and their events are really interesting because they kind of approximate the distance. They don't really know what the distance is, and when you turn, it always starts at a pub, and when you turn up, they give you a laminated sheet of paper with essentially directions.
God.
There's no markings, anything like that. They give you directions, and then they have a system where and you kind of know it's not a mass start. You start when you're ready to go.
Weird. Are these paid races? Is it like
Oh
is it
yeah,
just
but like six quid, 7 quid,
right,
something like
like,
that.
okay, cool. Proper
And they're
grassroots thing.
very often on a weeknight as well. Which, as you know, as a dad, I can sort of justify that a bit better because we can put the kids to bed and then I can head off to some country pub somewhere in Essex and do a bit of a race. So that was my first taster, and that only really fueled the fire, because it's one thing to see beautiful mountain passes and trails in places like Washington State and Southern California and everything, but there's also something to be said that I've actually got like this massive network of trails and bridleways and public footpaths right on my doorstep that previously I just hadn't explored at all. And it kind of gave me an excuse to do that. And then the next one local to me, which was a kind of a step up, um, was a race called Saltmarsh 75. And essentially it's a 2-day ultra marathon. Um, and it traverses the Saltmarsh coast around Essex. So you start in a place called Southwood and Ferris, and you just follow the coastline. So as runs go, it doesn't. I think the whole 75 miles probably has about 10 meters of elevation in it. But
What type of underfoot? Is it all very grassy, muddy type stuff? Is it nice, kind of like buffed out trails, or?
It's mostly very grassy, and the weather is, because it's coastal. The weather was the first year I did it was really sort of interchangeable, and so we started in bright sunshine, and then it was raining sideways, and I learned very quickly that the kind of the power of changing socks and things like that, because it was my feet got wet and uncomfortable pretty quickly. And I was going into this a complete novice. I had no concept of what would make a suitable shoe for that kind of terrain. I did hardly any to very little research. But I had a great time,
Hey, mate, you're
and
exactly who I'm talking about. You're like a good percentage of our customers who are just inspired to
yeah.
give something a crack and they kind of dive in. Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's interesting that so many people do that. So, like, you must have known it was going to be difficult, but did you just kind
Uh-huh.
of not know what you didn't know until you found out through experience, or were you going into it just thinking that you didn't need to prep, or did you not have the time to put
I
into
suppose
it?
a little bit of all of that. Um, but I think probably looking back on it, given that it was difficult, um, especially towards the end, I think if I'd have known everything, then I might not have given it a go in the first place. And so there is a degree of ignorance is bliss, because it didn't, it certainly, clearly, because we're having this conversation, it didn't put out that fire that was inside me. It kind of it made me think, well, maybe I do need to do a bit of research and do a bit of course recceing and things like that. But it was hard, but I had an absolutely fantastic time doing it, and it felt, even then, it felt like it was the start of something more for me. I obviously had no indication that it would turn into what it's turned into today, but it certainly felt like, I want to do more of this for sure.
Totally. So it sounds like it was like, it's similar to my own kind of story, associating trail running with some pretty big like lifestyle changes. So you said before that you were kind of a lot more into like going out, partying, drinking, having a different sort of lifestyle. And obviously you did the triathlon, you kind of found trail running through the content, and then you started to take part and kind of dived headfirst into some ultra distance trail stuff in the UK local to you. Did that then have a knock on effect to your lifestyle and your habits? Did you change your diet? Were you going out drinking less? Did you kind of replace one with the other, or did you just do both simultaneously for a period of time?
No, it completely shifted. I mean, it did coincide with having our firstborn child as well. And so there was an element of, I'm going to have to grow up now. Or I want to grow up now, probably more like, but it did completely shift. Yeah, I mean, even to this day, I don't drink alcohol. It's just not something that I'm particularly fussed about or particularly care about. So yeah, it did coincide with a real lifestyle shift.
It kind of also makes sense that it fits into that same timeline of like starting a family and feeling like you have to kind of grow up and changing your mindset around things. So in that first sort of year or two of trail running, those first few experiences, what would you say would be the main things that you took away from those, whether it was the races or the training or that shift of kind of lifestyle? What were the biggest benefits that you saw off the back of kind of identifying as a trail runner and starting to be part of this community?
I guess the biggest thing I noticed was how addicted I became to how going out for a run in nature made me feel. All the physical benefits are kind of plain to see, but actually what it did to my mood, how if like I'd had a disagreement or an argument with my wife beforehand, how going out for a run on the trails kind of helps me realize that actually I was probably in the wrong in that scenario, and that I should just go back with my tail between my legs and apologize. um and that was just one thing that I was trying to figure out, why is it that it makes me feel so good and gives me clarity. And I just also started noticing that when I was going for runs, like I was getting lots of ideas around all sorts of different things. I was becoming like more conscientious. It was just I just loved how it made me feel. And that was something that kind of propelled me just to keep doing more and diving into it more and more.
Yeah, totally. I mean, you can already see the kind of like roadmap unfolding, knowing about the charity work that you're doing and what you're trying to kind of provide to these groups of kids and yeah, the whole mission behind the movement that you kind of heading up. But before we kind of get into the creation of TrailFam and that idea originating, where are we currently on the timeline? So you've done this 75K or 75 mile race in Essex?
Miles. Yeah, mile.
Okay, right. Of course it is. Yeah. Okay, brutal. So straight into a 75 miler. That is mental. So how long were you participating in the sport and kind of reaping these benefits before like COVID hit and you started to think about the impact that was going to have on the kids and the students you're around? Because I'm assuming you were already teaching at this point. Have you been a secondary school teacher through this whole time period? Yeah.
Yeah, near enough. Yeah, so I suppose the COVID hit probably about 3.5 years after I did that 75 miler. So
Okay.
there was, and I haven't necessarily been prolific in my racing and my kind of and running events. Oddly enough, been far more prolific in attending them now with TrailFam.
Interesting.
But in actual racing, not so much. So really, it was 3.5 years of just getting out as much as I can, odd events here and there, trying new things, and really also just learning as much as I could. about the sport, becoming, like, talk about a fan first. That was my introduction into it, being a fan of the sport and those that not only compete in the sport, but everything, the community itself, and the different communities, different smaller trail communities within that, which I can sort of come to talk about a little bit more in terms of, like, um, in my introduction to fell running, and how that community looks very different to some of the ones on the south coast where we're going to events and things. So
Yeah.
yeah, so probably about 3.5 years, and then COVID hit, and COVID really, I would say COVID changed everything, and COVID is the catalyst for TrailFam coming into existence itself. So
Yeah, totally. I mean, well, why don't we just kind of jump forward to that and then loop back into the other bits? Because I know that COVID, I mean, it was a pretty big booster to the running industry in general. I mean, it was one of the only
yeah,
activities that you could. I know the rules were different everywhere. I was still living in Canada at the time, and so we lived in a somewhat isolated place, and the rules were a bit more relaxed, and I was actually able to train probably more consistently than I ever had before during COVID, because I had less time at work, more freedom, and there was no traffic and no people around. So I could just head out into incredible trails from the house and be super consistent because I had all this free time. But I know in the UK, rules were pretty restrictive, right? So where you were locally, were you still able to get out onto the trails? Because I know you weren't able to kind of drive certain distances to different areas and stuff. Did it impact your personal running significantly, or were you able to kind of keep it going?
similarly to you, it improved it in terms of consistency. So Boris said we were allowed 1 hour a day of physical exercise. And I had a network of woods and trails and bridleways and things within walking distance of my house. And so I took full advantage of it. I was out every single day without fail. It was almost like, because the guidelines were, or the rules, in fact, were that we were allowed 1 hour, it felt even more compelling to go and use that 1 hour,
Yeah,
to be outside and to have physical exercise. So every single day I was running. And my eldest daughter was born by then, so we were taking her out for walks, walking the dog, that kind of running with the dog, but just making sure that I was out every day. And I suppose it's important to note the context of, that's me in Essex, and the school that I was teaching at, which I'm currently sat in right now, by the way, but in the TrailFam capacity. That school is in Zone 1 of London, in Shoreditch. And yeah, so that was kind of, I wasn't able to travel into school. I was doing all of my lessons online to my students. And yeah, and so I was in a very fortunate position in that none of my family or friends became very seriously ill during the pandemic, or as a result of the pandemic. And I was, yeah, I feel guilty saying it, but I was absolutely loving life, getting out there every day. It oddly coincided, that first lockdown coincided with great weather as well, like oddly good weather. Um, and yeah, so I was out every day, and that was great until it wasn't. And to be frank, the reason it wasn't great, was because there was something nagging at me. Like I said, I was teaching online, and I was a pastoral lead at the school as well, so doing a lot of welfare calls to students and their families. Yeah, and without generalizing, the experience of those young people and their families that I cared about, by and large, was very different to the one that I had.
right.
And and there was they were disproportionately affected by the pandemic in terms of health of their families. It's Shoreditch is an incredibly diverse area, but it's also an incredibly built up, you know, built up area, and the level of human traffic is huge, and so we knew of entire families, or certainly the children of those families, that for an entire lockdown didn't leave their flat at all, um, and it just, it didn't feel wrong, but it felt like there was things within my power that I could do, or that at least I could think about, where I could sort of level that playing field a bit and address that imbalance. And yeah, that was the genesis of TrailFam. That's why that's why I felt something like TrailFam was needed. And as you can imagine, I didn't necessarily have the guts to go and try that myself to start with. I was looking online to see if I could volunteer that at something that already existed,
Right.
and it didn't. So I cracked on.
Interesting. So if you had to give us for the people listening who haven't heard of TrailFam, if you had to give us a kind of 1 or 2 sentence synopsis of what it is and what you guys are trying to do, how would you phrase that? What would that be?
TrailFam is a charity on a mission to improve the lives of young people, and the vehicle that we have to do that is trail running. And so we have 3 pillars that help us achieve that mission, and that is to improve physical health, mental well-being, and future pathways. And I guess the catalyst of all of that is connection to nature, and all of the benefits that come through connection to nature. That's the brief one.
Well, no, I mean, you've got that, obviously prepped. I mean, super inspirational kind of mission behind the movement, and you can completely see by you describing your personal experience and your career, and then your connection with these young people, and your ability to access the trails and get outside and maintain that lifestyle, or even increase that consistency, coupled with all the benefits that you've been reaping over the last few years of meeting these new communities, getting out on the trails, the mental well-being, all the positive you've talked about. And then the lack of that with the students who you obviously got these like connections with and these relationships with, and a level of responsibility for as well, I'm sure. Like,
Sure.
or at least you would have felt that way. So you decided, it makes a lot of sense that you decided to try and kind of make this happen. What did that mean? Like, what was the first step? So you thought, okay, I want to find a way to get these kids outside. I'm really passionate about the outdoors, about trail running. This seems like a really good method to improve these young people's lives in all these different ways. So what did you do? You must have sat down one day and sort of, what was the first step?
Well, the resources that I had at my disposal at the time were a cohort of students, secondary students, and the ability to kind of just start a school club, an after school club, where essentially I would get a group of willing kids onto a minibus, not always a willing teacher to support me, but I would drag them along nonetheless. And we'd take a group of kids out to, usually to Essex, because it was an area that I knew really well, and that might be somewhere like Epping Forest, which is literally 35 minutes down the road, or a little bit further in. Teaching the kids some really, really basic rudimentary skills for being on the trails, running uphill, running downhill, what to do if a dog wants to come and play with you, if you're nervous of dogs, just really, really basic stuff. And then kind of setting the guidelines so that we knew that we had them in sight and that they were being kept safe. But once those guidelines were in place, kind of just standing back and just trying to see what would happen. So what I mean by that is I was quite I was pretty staggered by the instantaneous impact that being in nature, not necessarily the running part yet, but being in nature had on young people. Now, obviously, it's that kind of effect that I grew up with my kids, with my parents taking me to the woods all the time. So it's not that I took it for granted, but I had that exposure to it.
Yeah.
Whereas, by and large, without generalizing, the young people that I was working with didn't have that exposure. And so that kind of instant impact was far greater than it would have been on someone like me. And it was staggering. I'll never forget. We took one of the days that we did it. We took a group of six formers, so 16 and 17-year-olds, out to some trails. Was doing all the same stuff, showing them the run, showing them some of the skills, and we came to a hill. Now, if I say this hill was 50 foot of elevation, that might be me over exaggerating slightly. And this young lad sort of looked at the hill and then looked at me, and he was like, "Are we running up that mountain?" And I said, "That's not a mountain, but yes, we are. Let's go. Come on." And it was that it yeah, it was that it's something that nature gives that I heard someone else talking about this, Steve Backshaw, actually, the naturalist. And he was talking about like that nature gives us a sense of awe. And even gentle nature, like a woodland in Essex, has the ability to do that, especially if you haven't had the exposure to it. And then trail running, of course, gives us this really fun, really cool way that we can go and play with this space and be in this space, and we don't have to just gently walk and all of the
Yeah,
all of the gentle stuff. We
totally.
can go and be, we can go and really sort of use this space in a really cool way. And so that was what the sessions looked like. They were just after school clubs. But then demand outgrew my capacity to deliver those sessions. I had more kids that wanted to do it than I was physically able. So then I
Well,
went
that
and
was going to
spoke
be
to
one of my questions, Danny. Like, what was the uptake like? Because when you first pitched it, did people look at you? Because I'm assuming if these kids haven't been exposed to it, they might not be thinking that like hiking, going in the woods, trail running is like the coolest thing. And they're sort of teenagers, young kids. They're from the city, so maybe they've got different interests, whatever, music, food, like fashion, whatever it might be, football probably. Did you get like three people put a hand up and everyone else sort of looked and thought that sounds crap, or was it an immediate kind of this sounds pretty cool, let's go and give it a go? Like how was that initial uptake?
Well, I had to be a bit creative with how I sort of sold it to the kids.
Okay.
So there was, with anything, there's always going to be a few early adopters that just want to give something a go because it's new and that's in their makeup as people. They just want to try things. So there was an element of that. But I'm a teacher by trade and training, so I've got to be good at making PowerPoints. And so I chose to make a PowerPoint full up of pictures of the likes of Killian running on a
Okay.
knife edge ridge in
Yeah.
ridiculously high mountains, with the kind of it's bending the truth, I suppose. It's in terms of what the kids would do, but if you want, there's no shortage of pictures that make the sport look cool. That put it that way, right? And
True.
and so it's just showing some of those. So that kind of drummed up interest. And then what happens, especially with young people, but it happens with adults as well, is you have early adopters and then you have ones that need to be convinced. And then at the far end, you've got ones that are going to set out their stall straight away and say, absolutely no way am I doing
This is
that.
not me. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. And you need those people as much as anything, especially I needed them to have a kind of a clear insight into how popular this thing was. So the early adopters go and do the thing. They come for the runs, then they come back because they enjoy it. So they vote with their feet, literally. And then friends of theirs that weren't sure to start with then come. And the biggest vote of confidence we possibly had was, a kid coming more than once. And that was when it started to grow just within that one school, within the sort of the 2 or 3 year groups that we started it with. And it kind of quickly became apparent that actually it was important for us to start thinking about, well, why is it that these kids are enjoying this so much? Is it for the same reasons that I enjoy it, or is it something slightly different? By and large, it was for the same reasons, but there were kind of caveats to that, in that just spending time with your friends outside of a school setting, kids found super valuable, especially because me and you, when we were at school, after school, I'm assuming you, but after school, I would dump my bag in the house and then I'd go out and play with my
Yeah,
friends.
immediately, like ring on the landline, meet at the park in 15 minutes, ride your bike to the park,
100%.
mess around doing
Yeah.
whatever, you're climbing trees, playing football. And all my best memories
Yeah.
from school are like camping trip, going to Butlins, whatever it was, like on a climbing wall. It's all playing outdoors with your mates. And even at the weekend, we did the same thing. We'd go to the woods with our mates, we'd build dens, we'd ride mountain bikes. It was all bikes, but same thing. But like you say, though, that was my experience. So I had that on the doorstep, and my parents did that, similar to you. So to me, that was normal. That's just what you did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, now put yourself in the position of a parent of a kid, and you live in Shoreditch, or you live in Hackney, or you live in Bethnal Green, or you insert kind of very built up area above. And I'm not sure, if I was in a parent's position of a lot of these kids that we were taking out, that I would want my kid to come and put their bag down and then head out onto Bethnal Green Road, or to head out to,
totally.
Wherever. It became a social thing massively, because kids weren't, by and large, having those experiences after school and in the holidays that we were getting.
Okay.
So it was just a chance for them just to be with their mates and not have to, do a maths class or a history class or whatever it was. They're just being with their friends.
Yeah, no, that it makes
And
perfect sense.
Yeah.
What about the physical exertion side, though? Are these guys, like, obviously it's super mixed, and you're going to have sporty types, non-sporty types. And I'd imagine the more adventurous, sporty-minded people probably were the more early uptakers. But did you start to get people who weren't necessarily the type of student that would be looking forward to a PE class coming along and actually really enjoying it? Or was there a lot of like, oh my God, it's pissing down, there's a big hill, I'm not running up that. I don't want to be tired, I don't want to try hard? Or did they sort of dive into it?
Yeah, the uptake from kids that you wouldn't necessarily expect was way higher than, and it surprised me at first. And I actually spent a long time trying to figure that out. Like I said, the friendship thing was a big part of that. But also it was an opportunity for something different, for young people to actually prove something to themselves. And there was I had a lot of conversations with kids around that sort of thing. A lot of kids kind of being probably far too aware of what they look like, and how they feel in terms of, due to a lack of physical activity. Just this caught the imagination of a lot of kids, because it was something different. They were told quite early on that they were allowed to walk if they needed to walk. Like, you're not coming on these early sessions because there's an expectation that in 6 months you'll get from X 5K time to Y 5K
Yeah,
time.
you're not
It's like
going
you're
and
coming.
doing 2-minute VO2 hill VO2 max hill reps on day one, right? It's just let's just show
No,
you what this thing is. I mean, half the sport is
no,
walking when you're doing ultra distance races, so it's the foundation of a lot of it.
exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, and even in shorter races as well. You know, it's a cool sport that like I could be on the start line with some of those people that I started being a fan of, right?
yeah, totally,
And those people are going to get to the finish line before me, and I'll get to the finish line before some others. But the important thing is that we're all working towards a common goal, which is to get to that finish line and to have to try and enjoy the journey whilst we do it. So
totally.
that was important to me to kind of ingratiate our young people to that attitude, to that philosophy. Like I said, it was, with the kind of the things that made me fall in love with the sport, especially, the films and stuff that I watched, there is kind of a hippie-ish element to it. And I know a lot of that with the professionalism of the sport and the brand involvement is kind of fading into the background a little bit, but there is still a sort of an alternativeness to
And
trail
that's
running. And
the heart and soul of it. That's the thing that makes it different. Like, I mean, I don't know if anyone
yeah,
follows like some of the Instagram channels, like your boy Scott Jurek and some of these kind of meme
yeah,
channels. I mean, it's hilarious. That guy's amazing. But it's
yeah,
the Anton Kopitschka in the tiny shorts, like running through the mountains, and Scott Jurek and these old school, like kind of unique hippie-ish, often quite kind of nerdy alternative types that like are the foundation of the sport.
yeah,
And you're right, it's becoming more professionalized, but I'm not quite sure. I'm not so sure that it's changed that much because I recorded an episode with Gemma yesterday, and she just got sponsored by Hoka recently, and she went on the Hoka camp in Chamonix pre-UTMB, met all these big names for the first time, which was a massive learning experience for her. And one of the people was Ludovic Pomeray, who'd just come back from winning Hard Rock. And his whole story was how he'd been out at Hard Rock prepping with his wife. They'd slept in the car for 5 weeks. He was having showers in the stream. He was full on like dirtbag mode. And he's best in the
yeah,
world. Like he just set the course record at one of the biggest races in the
yeah,
world. So I don't know how much it really has changed. I think that is still one of the things that makes this sport pretty special is like it is pretty laid back and grassroots. Like,
yeah,
yeah, it's a cool part of
yeah.
it.
Which is, I love that,
Yeah,
and long may that continue, as far as I'm concerned.
totally.
Yeah. So I've kind of forgot where I am, but
No. So I took you off track, Danny. We got to the point where, like, so you've started the after school club, you've got the kids going, it's gathered a bit of traction, and all of a sudden you're a little bit overrun with uptake. How did what
mm,
did it grow into off the back of just being like an after school activity for your school and then deciding to actually, establish the charity and move things on? And what did that next step look like?
well, it stemmed from conversations with the kids themselves, and then conversations with their parents, and then other teachers, my colleagues. And I was on a regular basis, getting feedback from teachers that this kid who's been an absolute bloody nightmare in their lessons um, is really loves the trail, really loves the trail sessions, and really loves coming out with TrailFam. Has something positive to associate with school, and he's actually, and that teacher's starting to see a bit of a shift in things like behaviour or confidence.
No, that must have
Um,
been amazing to
uh,
hear. That must have been a big boost.
it was a huge boost, but it also it kind of it wasn't enough in that I was like, well, more young people, more children should have that chance, um, and it was quite quick actually. Once that feedback started coming in, I started. I couldn't get away from the thought that TrailFam, which we had a name by then, which I think one of the kids named it. Um,
Nice.
TrailFam should be a charity, um, because I think I was just thinking along the lines of this is one school, and one school's great, but there are way more kids out in the world that that could do with reaping the benefits of what we do. So that kind of led us to, and we did that for a long time. Like we did those sessions for a long time after COVID, because we registered as a charity in March 2023. So we're
Right.
young as a charitable organization, but we've been going for a while since then. Before that, so yeah, that was how the shift happened. That was it was just that feeling that this, not even in terms of like scale or ambition, it was just that more young people should have access to this, and that was the crux of it. Yeah.
So then how did you go about, because obviously you had the almost like captive audience of your own students and the school, and like you had a standing in that community with some
Mm.
authority, and you could kind of offer these classes and lean on support and stuff like that. How did you then spread out across other schools, other organizations? And I guess trickiest thing at first must have been just letting all these kids who could benefit from it know that it existed, because it's such a new concept.
Yeah.
Like they need to know it exists before they could get involved. So how did you tackle that part?
Firstly, with the work that I'd done in the school and those sessions, kind of formalizing those into a program so that we had something that was marketable to other schools. That was the first kind of task, was to think, okay, well, look, we're taking the kids out. On a weekly basis. We've also started kind of working with the school that I was still teaching at the time, on um, targeting certain students or targeting certain groups to be able to have an impact on it could have been anything, but groups of students with particular needs or that were facing a particular challenge or whatever it might have been. And so it was kind of, okay, let's come up with a school's program so that it could be rolled out and that it's transferable and that it isn't exclusive to this one school. And that was the first aim. The second aim was to try and be within local communities, like actual communities, as much as possible. So to devise a program as well that saw us go into communities and have something that young people could do that wasn't necessarily connected to their school. Um, and the reason for that is because there's always going to be young people that kind of, or certainly parents that really, really prioritize certain aspects of school life and not others, but that there is still room for clubs and there is still room for
Right.
things when they're not in the building. Once we had those kind of two ideas down, um, it was really on the school side of things. That's still a challenge. That's still hard, to be honest with you, because I'm talking to you, you get it. You run, you're in the sport, and so it's kind of an easy sell. But if I'm speaking to a school leader, that has never been on the trails or isn't particularly consider themselves a runner or whatever it might be, it can sometimes, it can be difficult for me to have an audience to explain that to. For the schools that we've been successful with, once we have those initial conversations, we go into the schools, the way I present it hasn't really veered too much from the way I presented it to students way back when. I probably use a little bit less of crazy mountain runners doing crazy things,
I mean, you've probably also now
because
got
we've got
content that's more relatable, right? Like of other
100%.
kids that look
Yeah,
like
so
them, Yeah, exactly.
exactly. So now we can see, now children can see their peers um, doing crazy things, to going and running races and being successful and being in nature. And that actually is far more powerful than any professional mountain runner, or a photo or a video of a professional mountain runner. You can work them in sometimes. but it's the actual images of and the stories and the case studies of young people that have come through TrailFam and how important that's been for them. Yeah, that's kind of how we've navigated
Nice.
that.
I mean, obviously, like the roots of it was always, it was less the running and definitely not the racing and event side of things, and more so all the benefits from being out in nature and community and all the stuff that's like, it's almost cliche at this point because we're part of this community, like you say, part of the sport. We know how much value there is to it, and it's what all the brands talk about and all the community groups and the run clubs. And but it's cliche because it's true. Like there's just so many benefits to it, and it's such an amazing sport to be a part of for all those reasons. But I also know that you guys did have some kids who kind of had a little bit of talent for the sport and actually like wanted to train and wanted to kind of take part in races, and you even started to put together a bit of a race team and stuff. So how did that develop, and what does that look like? What are the plans for that side of things, the more competitive side?
Yeah, so it's our third pillar is future pathways, and the reason that is one of our third pillars is we didn't want there to be a kind of a sudden halt in running with TrailFam. We wanted there to be a progression so that actually you could run for us as long as for as long as you want, and that there are pathways through not only us as an organization but through the sport as we progress. And using models like the talent pathway that was being designed by UK Athletics, but tailoring it to what we have, it became apparent that actually some of these kids that are running with us are ridiculously talented. They're ridiculously talented. They don't know that they're ridiculously talented. They also don't have the resources to kind of be out there all the time, or the knowledge of races to go to. And actually, we could act as a kind of an umbrella for those young people to be able to go out and have top quality training, to have access to good kit, um, to have opportunities for travel and adventure and racing, which is now what has turned into not only domestically but internationally as well. Yeah, so we've got a TrailFam race team, and it's to date 16 strong. Yeah, 16 kids, yep. Age between 12 and 15. Um, and we go pretty much everywhere, James. We go everywhere and do as much as we can. And not only racing, but also volunteering, going to all sorts of different events, certainly around the UK. And having, there's multiple events that have now, I think, benefited greatly from a TrailFam aid station. And yeah, I'm really trying to, you know, I heard someone not too long ago, just when describing their sort of their group, say that they were there to take over. And that's not really what TrailFam's about. You know, we are here to take part. We're here to add our own flavor onto things, and our young people want to be a part of existing communities. And I know from knowing these young people that how much they can enrich those communities. Lo and behold, there when we go and like when we recently went to Cornwall to to get involved with the Rat Weekend. The kids had the most incredible time supporting that race, but also, what I've learned through the few years that we've been going to things like this is actually the people at these events gain just as much from our young people being there. I believe as our young people gain from it. So that's the race team. And we've
Nice.
got a crazy year and we're crazy calendar this year of events. We'll be back in Gran Canaria, Trans Gran Canaria. We'll be at UTS for the 5th year running. And yeah, I mean, the Arc of Attrition. There's a couple of UTMB races as well that we're looking at, and that's before me and you even got to have our first chat.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's super exciting. I agree massively that, I mean, we see it all the time with our events where if we can get community groups, especially young people, involved with the event, and we can kind of work it out where we can facilitate them taking part and give them a space in the event village, give them some entries, try and kind of, yeah, I don't know, just lower that barrier to entry, which sometimes can be quite difficult with trail running, right? It's like they're not the cheapest races to enter. You have to travel quite far. You have to sort out accommodation and food and kit, and it isn't just a pair of shoes. For like a road 10K, you might need a vest and a waterproof and mandatory kit and all this stuff. It's not as simple as just throw a pair of shoes on and go for a run when you get to a certain level. And obviously that side of things we can help quite a lot with. But as you say, what we benefit from and what these other event organizers will be benefiting from is just that injection of passion and excitement, because you can't fake atmosphere. And what an event needs is atmosphere. You can draw the best course in the world and sell 2,000 tickets and have a really cool venue. But if it's flat and there's no atmosphere, there's no community engagement, the staff on the aid stations are all paid agency staff that don't really want to be there, and they're just pouring water into cups. That is not the same vibe as having a gang of people there shouting and cheering and ringing cowbells and just like engaged, who have friends and family running and who just are there because they really want to be there and they're just loving it. It's an intangible that you can't really buy. Like, it adds a ton of value. And I think what you guys are trying to do as a community.
I'll just share a story with you.
Yeah, of course.
Just quickly.
Yeah.
Because some of your listeners might have previously run or might be running next year UTS. And I know I mentioned UTS. But if they have, or if they come to run it and they're doing the 100K, halfway along the course, there's a bag drop. And we've kind of become a bit famous for this within the race, because the leading up to the bag drop, you run for about half a mile through a forest. Well, our kids, when they're on that aid station, so they always get put on that aid station to support. So what they do is they set up a chain so that for pretty much the entirety of that half a mile run, you've got kids within earshot of each other. And so as soon as if you've got a listener that's going to be running through there, they'll notice a kid, see their race number, they'll scream their race number a few hundred meters down the track. Then so that basically by the time they get to that aid station, there'll be another kid holding up their drop bag.
The drop bag's ready. Nice.
And it's like, I've spoken to a lot of people that have raced that race, and they were like, yeah, when I've had it so firmly in my head that I was going to drop at that aid station, but when I came down and those kids were there, shouting my number and cheering me on, I don't know if it was that they were inspired to carry on or they felt guilty that they couldn't stop, so they carried on anyway.
It's one and the same, isn't it? Yeah. Totally. Oh, I mean, that's awesome. And it's like, think of the impact that's having on the kids as well. I think about my daughter quite a lot, because she's attending all these events that we're working at, and like, she's coming to the races that I'm running, she's coming to the races that I'm working with the team to organize. So by the time she gets to 12, 15, 16, the age of the kids that you guys are working with, she's going to have had 10, 12 years of being around people who are doing these things as if it's normal. And so for her, it's just going to be so much more accessible and exciting, and seem so possible to go and race 100K through the mountains. And these guys are seeing people, halfway through 100K, and UTS is known to be absolutely brutal. A lot of them suffering, and like watching people work through adversity, and just the lessons that they're absorbing by being around that and just absorbing that environment, rather than wherever else they might be, in a different reality if this didn't exist. It's just such an intangible impact. I don't think you can really measure that. They might not even realize that they're absorbing it, but they are, just by being there. So like you say, it goes both ways. Yeah, it's amazing. And it's what we're trying to do as an events company as well. Like, we're putting on events because running's changed our lives in positive ways. We've met people, seen places, had experiences that we just simply wouldn't have had if we weren't into trail running and we weren't traveling and meeting people through the sport. And we just want to share that with other people. It's literally exactly the same thing that you're trying to do, but just in a slightly different form. And I think all
Yeah.
of our mission and values and stuff align really well, and they do with a lot of different organizations, whether it is like a race team or a clothing brand or an event organizer or a charity or whatever. In this space, everyone seems to kind of have the same goal, which is just facilitating positive change in people's lives through sharing a sport that we love, that makes us feel good. You only get that one life, right? It doesn't have to be so serious. We can go and play in the mountains and run on the trails, and sometimes you try hard and you take it seriously, and sometimes it's a laugh, and sometimes it's horrible and really difficult. But it all just comes together to kind of, it's just such an incredible sport that has such a massive impact. So yeah, it's a really cool story, Danny, and I'm super excited about the potential collaboration we could have in the future. And I'm flicking through the website before we had the call and looking at pictures of some of the kids at these events, and just, yeah, it's exciting to me to be able to provide a bit of a stage for them to come and take part, whether that's volunteering or running in one of the races, and just to have any kind of impact on a young person's life that's positive is, I mean, you're a teacher, so I know you probably think this as well, but it's one of the best things you probably do with your life.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, it's amazing.
No, and I can't, I'd like to sort of certainly have it on record that we're certainly very grateful to yourself and to Justin and everyone at RunThrough for being so accommodating for that. And then I think we're going to have a lot of young people over the next year come and volunteer at your events. Certainly domestically, but hopefully in some of your global summit events as well. And like we were talking about, the impact sort of goes both ways, and the young people have got, I mean, obviously I advocate for young people. That's my job. That's what I'm passionate about. And it just so happens that that's through trail running, but kind of my eyes don't lie and my ears don't lie, and the impact that young people can have on an organization like RunThrough, and for the brave men and women that come and run your races as well. Hopefully, they'll sort of enrich their experience as well, which is definitely something that they want to do. It's about a shared community.
Yeah. And it's about a shared community of different faces, of people who are from different places, who look different ways, of different ages, who come from different backgrounds. Like, it's a huge thing for us. And I think, it's something that we're not necessarily always equipped to have an enormous impact on, but it's something that I know the whole company's passionate about and really does care about. And I think the whole trail running community in general, like, there's a lot of recognition of the fact that it's a lot of, majority white people from certain parts of the world who probably had upbringing similar to ourselves, where it was normal to get out into the mountains and the woods, and all the people that you see in the content and all the people that you're talking about in the content that you were consuming look like us. Whereas there's a huge gap in the market to, whether it's selling entries to customers or getting other people involved in the sport or having people come and volunteer at events, where if all you're seeing is people that look like me and you, and you're, a 12-year-old girl from central London who doesn't look anything like us, then maybe it doesn't seem quite so accessible. And it can be a bit intimidating, and it is different places that aren't kind of filled with people who are particularly diverse. So it's another whole part of what you guys are doing is really just increasing that diversity within the sport, which I think is absolutely huge, because the talent pool that's untapped, because a lot of the people from these communities don't even see trail running as an option, is enormous. And I think that over the next kind of 10 to 20 years, we'll see a massive shift in the level at the top end of the sport, as well as just kind of the range of people participating as like hobby runners shift significantly, because you are starting to see a lot more diversity in the content and in attendance at the events. And again, I think if you try and force that, it feels too fake and non-genuine. But if it happens naturally, because you are just showing these people that this sport exists and all the benefits of it, and they pick it up and take it on, then it's that organic, momentum that just builds. So I think that's another huge part that we didn't even really touch on, but I do think it's significant.
Totally significant. And it's, you're seeing this, there's a lot of different groups and a lot of different communities within the sport that have all got something valuable to say, something valuable to offer. Yeah, and it's just super important that we all stay open to that as much as possible. And if you know, like from a personal point of view, you know, for TrailFam, I want as many young people coming up, and then sort of in terms of pathways, you know, entering roles of leadership within the charity as well as possible, because you're right, and it is a cliche, but most of them are cliches because they're true, that you can't be what you can't see. Um, One of the founders, Sabrina Pace Humphreys, says that a lot, and it's, you know, it's totally true. One of the founders of Black Trail Runners, I should have said. Yeah, she says that a lot. And it's true. You can't be what you can't see. And yeah, so we're trying to be as open as possible, listen to as many different viewpoints as possible. It doesn't matter if, you know, you're at the front end of UTMB and you're in line to win the race, or if you're sort of toeing the start line and hoping to just make it in before the cut off. I think if you're a runner, you're a runner. And if you're a trail runner, you're a trail runner. And therefore, you know, those faces and those voices, whoever that might be, wherever they're from, whatever culture they represent, cultures they represent, should be heard, should be listened to, and should be seen. Yeah, like I said, James, I really appreciate your openness to that, and your ability to see the value in that, for sure.
Totally. Yeah. And I think me and everyone listening really appreciates what you guys are doing and all the opportunities. And like I said, there's just nothing better than seeing like really psyched young people at trail running events just loving it and getting stuck in and all the value that adds. So, I mean, yeah, it's an amazing story, Danny. And like you say, it's really only just getting started. There's so much more to come. And I hope we, as we say, can do a lot together over the next couple of years and get these kids involved in a load of the run through events and definitely get people out to Europe and yeah, just see what we can do to develop the sport and push things on. And it's cool. It's exciting. Again, it's another example of meeting people with shared interests through a sport that we love and traveling the world and getting to do cool things. So I'm looking forward to meeting a load of the kids and working more with you guys and just to seeing how things progress. And hopefully everyone listening has enjoyed hearing about the story. And I'm sure it's resonated with a lot of people. It is very similar as well to, I know I mentioned John McAvoy last time we spoke, but we've had John on the podcast and chatted to him a bit about the Alpine Run Project and the stuff those guys are doing. It's cool to see all these different initiatives that are just looking at trying to get more people engaged with the sport and exposing more people to it. And like I say, that's what we're passionate about at RunThrough as well. So yeah, thanks a lot for your time, Danny. It really is amazing. Really looking forward to meeting you in person and linking up with some of the kids at the upcoming events later this year. I think you've got some people coming down to Brighton in a couple of weeks, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep,
nice.
We certainly do. Yep.
Awesome.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we're pretty excited for that event. I mean, it's our first 50 miler in the UK, actually. So I know the guys are in kind of full prep mode, and we've got Sea to Sky event happening in Barmouth in North Wales this weekend as well for the second time, which is like a 25k and a 50k with a really cool event village on the beach. So yeah, we're non-stop. I know you're a busy guy too, but we're constantly just trying to put on more events and do as much as we can. So really hope you guys have a good time at Brighton. Weekend after next, that event probably would have passed by the time this podcast comes out. If anyone listening wants to learn a bit more about what you guys are doing or even volunteer or get involved, are there any pathways for them to contribute to this if it's something that they're passionate about?
Yeah, absolutely. We've got a volunteer network. So usually getting in touch with our socials is the best way. We're pretty active on Instagram. So if anyone, it does feel like it's something they'd like to be involved with, just to send us a message on Instagram. Similarly with young people as well. You know, if there are young people listening, or there are parents or family members of young people that think that you know would be a bit of them, to jump in touch. We've got contact forms on our website as well, which is trailfam.com. Yeah, and I mean, like you said, there is a lot more to come. There's a lot more that we're going to be announcing. We're doing a joint community run with Hayden Hawks in a couple of weeks in London. So if people are about in London and want to come and meet Hayden, then through TrailFam, then absolutely please do. You don't have to be a young person to come along to that, because they're allowing me to come. So yeah. So there's lots. Yeah, keep an eye on our social media. Send us a message. And if people want to send us an email, just contact@trailfam.com.
Awesome.
We'll get right back.
Amazing. Thanks, Danny. So yeah, any of the listeners who want to reach out, definitely recommend that you do. As I mentioned, we've got Sea to Sky coming up this weekend, Brighton 50-50, and then into Lady Bower, which is like our flagship UK Summit Series event over 2 days this year with in partnership with the North Face and Sports Shoes. We got loads of cool stuff going on with camping and guest speakers and trying to make it into a bit more of an actual festival over in the Hope Valley, which is just always an epic event. Fingers crossed we don't get any rain, but Peak District in September, so you never know. And then in terms of European events, we just got one left over in Locarno, Ascona Locarno on the 1st of November, right on the Italian border, just on the Swiss side. Stunning location, with a half and a trail marathon as well as a kids race actually, and a little stairs race. We're trying to kind of add in some stuff to make it a bit more accessible for these local communities. So yeah, super excited about everything that's going on. Thanks again, Danny. We'll see you guys over at Brighton. Thanks to everyone for listening. Hope you've enjoyed it, and we'll see you again on the next episode.